to be back with you today and grateful to introduce Dr. Michael Buch, who holds an BA, an MS, and a Ph.D. degree in analytical chemistry, i.e. he's probably the smartest guy to be speaking to us so far in this group. Oh, don't tell President Tuminis I said that, please. And in microtechnology. He has nearly 3 decades of experience, although he's only 27, in the consumer healthcare industry in various roles of increasing responsibility with some of the world's leading companies, including GlaxoSmithKline, and we were just talking that I was doing a negotiation with GSK some years ago, and I was just down the hall from him, working with some of his colleagues, and also with Pfizer. Mike has a broad knowledge of consumer healthcare and currently serves as the Chief Science Officer and board member at Young Living Essential Oils, a rapidly growing multi-billion-dollar international wellness company and the largest provider of essential oils in the world. He is directly responsible for leading research, development, product development, and quality assurance across Young Living. Mike has expertise in leading global strategy, development programs, open innovations programs, licensing, consumer healthcare R&D, advanced technology labs, advanced optical analysis labs, and biosensor design and research. His work has directly led to the development of consumer health products, and I think some of you will mention today, and you've used them in your home, with annual sales exceeding $3 billion, and his products have been marketed in more than 100 countries. His success has resulted in more than a dozen patents in healthcare, several books, and numerous published articles in peer-reviewed scientific journals. Mike is also a member of several prestigious associations, including the American Chemical Society, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and was recently listed as a member of the Board of Directors of Institute of Science for Global Policy. Now, this is a different type of speaker than we've had before because most have been straight business people. Mike combines science with business, and I've had the responsibility in my life when I've led an organization as a CEO to have a scientist working for me. And maybe I shouldn't say this with him in the audience, but they're a different lot. And you work with them different when you combine business and science. And I'm grateful that Mike will help us bridge that gap between science and business. And I'm looking forward to what he'll have to say. He and his wife live in just over on the hill, just above Alpine. What's it called again? What's Draper? You're in Draper, actually. He has a daughter at college and a daughter at Lone Peak High School. Do we have any Lone Peak grads here? Raise your hand. Come on. You got a half dozen or so that are there. Please join me in welcoming Mike to the stage.
Good morning. Yes, we are a different lot. Scientists are very different from business people. One of the things that I think would be a huge advantage for all of you to learn is how to work with scientists. And that's why I'm here to talk about the business of science. Oops. Okay, I'm done. No. There we go. Before I go into my talk, I thought I'd tell you just a little bit about the company I work for now. I work for a company called Young Living Essential Oils. We're based in Lehigh. As you can see, we have 3,300 global employees. We're growing by leaps and bounds. It's been a real roller coaster ride because we've been growing by 20-some% ever since I got there 4 years ago. It's been a lot of fun. We have what we call 6 million members. This is a multi-level marketing company, so we call our customers members. And so there are about 6 million people who regularly buy our products around the world. We've got 22 corporate and partner farms. One of the things that's really interesting about Young Living Essential Oils is that everything we make is extracted from plants. And we grow our own very exotic aromatic plants at farms all around the world. And the farming is kind of the heart of our company. It's what differentiates us from other companies that sell essential oils. Because I can actually tell you, when you buy a bottle of oil from Young Living, which farm it came from. And that's something that's very unique to us. We have something that we call our Seed to Seal program, which allows us to ensure our quality from the seed in the ground the whole way up until the final product that the plant is used in. And that's something that also makes us very unique. As you can see, we've got 200 Actually, I think we're up to about 282 essential oils that we sell. And you will be able to grab a few samples of those on your way out when you leave, because we've got a little display set up with lots of little goodies that we make. This says 600 plus individual products. I'm not really counting, but it's 724 right now. And as I said, we launch products continuously. It's been a real fun ride for someone who loves to develop products and talk about new products to be with a company like this. Okay, enough about us. Let's talk about the business of science. Now, science in general is a very big business. And I'm sorry, I went too far. Let's go back here. Let's talk about countries around the world who support scientific research, okay? The reason governments support scientific research is, of course, is to advance their own culture, their own society within those countries. But if you look at the numbers, they're actually pretty staggering. This is a shot of the top 10 countries and what they spend on scientific research. And of course, the United States is up there at a little over $500 billion in scientific research, followed closely by China, and China's working real hard to pass us on that. But again, this just exemplifies the fact that governments consider science to be very, very important for advancing society in general. Now, within those governments, there are private companies, of course. And I thought this is a little bit of a surprise to you, possibly. This is just a screenshot of the top the top companies that support science, that spend on science. And is anyone surprised that Amazon is #1 for scientific spend? I was shocked by that. If you Google Amazon and look at their science, though, and you've heard of this already, they're looking at drones to deliver products, and they're looking at packaging that dissolves in water, so when you get a cardboard box, rather than having to recycle it, you can put it in the sink and it just dissolves into nothing. They're looking at all sorts of interesting science. And of course, they have the money to do it, so they're spending it. As you go down, you get into the more traditional companies, things like Apple, Roche, Johnson & Johnson. Those are the big pharmaceutical companies who spend a lot on science every year to make sure that they stay ahead of the competition. Now, just one more thing I wanted to mention, one more statistic, and that is the fact that the US government actually stimulates scientific research. They want companies to do scientific research. And the way they do that is to offer a tax credit. And it's very complicated. I won't go into the details, but there's basically a 4-part test to how you get that tax credit for doing research. And that's why a lot of these companies actually move a lot of their programs within R&D and call it research. As long as it passes this test, they get a tax credit for it. All right, enough of the boring statistics. Let's talk about some fun stuff. These are the 3 subheaders that I think are really important when you talk about what science can do for business, okay? And I'll go through each of these with a few examples. But they are product development. Obviously, you have to make products if you have products to sell. Testing those products. You want to make sure that those products work well, that they meet regulatory standards, that they alleviate liability for the corporation. You don't want a product that's going to go out there and hurt someone. And finally, scientists get to develop and support claims. To me, that's the most fun part. We'll spend a little time on that in a few minutes. You ever heard of Henry Ford? Yeah. Is anybody still awake? It's like, yeah? Not sure? Raise your hand if you're asleep. No, it doesn't work. Anyway, Henry Ford was famous enough to get his picture on a stamp. That's kind of my objective in life. He's attributed to making this quote, and frankly, no one is actually sure if he ever said this, but it's worth mentioning anyway. His famous quote was, if they asked people what they wanted, they'd have asked for faster horses. What he meant by that is that the general public, consumers, don't really know what they want, okay? Sometimes they do, okay? And don't shoot the messenger here. This is Henry Ford's quote, okay? But what happens in a lot of companies is they will do consumer surveys and they will ask, consumers what they want, what kind of products they should develop, et cetera, et cetera. And the point that this statement kind of makes is that consumers oftentimes can't really see over the horizon. They only know what's right in front of them. That's because they're not familiar with things like what science can actually do, what the scientific trends are, where developments are heading. So they don't really see over that horizon. Now, Tom said scientists are a little different. I'm a scientist, I'm a little different. So I took a picture to bring with me to show you the horizon, but it's not the typical horizon, is it? That's a horizon from the moon. It's worth mentioning, because this is one of my favorite photos. This is just a spectacular shot. It was taken from Apollo 11 back in 1969, I think. And it was taken by Michael Collins, who was the commander of the lunar orbiter. And from that orbiter, they launched the lunar probe, which went down to the surface of the moon. And this particular picture was taken about 2 minutes after the probe ejected from the lunar orbiter, and it was heading down to the surface of the moon. In that lunar lander were two people named Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong. About 10 minutes after this was taken, they became the first two people to ever walk on the moon. So this is a really cool picture. The other thing that's really cool about it is it's backwards for most of us, right? This is the Earth rising above the horizon in the background. Right? Usually we see the moon rising above the Earth's horizon. The reason I'm going into this much detail on this picture is to demonstrate the fact that scientists usually think a little differently from business people. So let me put someone on the spot. How would you describe this picture if you had to describe it? Yeah.
Well, it's definitely not ordinary. It's not something you see every day.
It's not something you see every day. If you had to name it, people have called this the moonscape. People have called this Earthrise, which I think is really cool, the Earth rising in the background. Any other descriptive points you could think of?
Just really foreign.
It's really foreign, yeah. Yeah, that's good. Michael Collins, who was the pilot in the command module that took this photo, was an astronaut. He was also a very highly trained scientist. When asked to describe the picture, he described it as a scientist might think, kind of out of the box. You know what he said? He said, this is a picture of every human being, alive or dead, who ever existed, minus one, me, Michael Collins, the guy behind the camera. Isn't that cool? Think about that. Every single person who ever lived or died is on that Earth, except for the two guys in that lunar module who were going down, minus Michael Collins, who was behind the camera. I just think that's a really cool, intriguing way to describe a photo that I doubt if anyone would have thought of in this room. Yeah? Yeah? Kind of cool. It shows that scientists think a little differently. Scientists, believe it or not, are creative. That's a very creative way to describe that photo, I think. And scientists are creative by nature. That's why they develop products. They're always tinkering and trying new things. But I wanted to just point out the fact that there's real power when scientists and business people get together. Right? It's the power of diversity, diverse thinking, different ways of describing things. And I'm going to get into that in a few minutes. Okay? Let's move on. You all know what these are, I hope. This is a great example of that statement that Henry Ford made about looking over the horizon. Smartphones, frankly, wouldn't exist, I don't think, if we had depended on consumer feedback in a business. If we had asked 20 years ago for people to, what would they think? Would they like a phone that you can talk on, but it's also a camera, and you have to type on it if you want to privately talk to your friends? People would have said, no, I want a phone that I can just talk on. All that other stuff is garbage, right? It took the scientists to realize how to put it together in a nice package that the business people could then take and market before it was a product. There's not a consumer on the planet 20 years ago who would have wanted this. They would have thought it was just nonsense. Now, let me give you another example. This is an example of a scientist who didn't work with business people, and it turned into a problem. Because my whole reason for being here is to tell you that you should be working with scientists. Incidentally, how many people here have a scientist that's a friend? Ooh, not too many. Okay. Go meet a scientist. Especially when you get into business, meet a scientist, talk to scientists. They'll bring different perspective to what you're doing. This is a brilliant scientist. This is Dr. Louis Ignarro. Lou is a professor in the pharmaceutics department at UCLA. Extremely brilliant man. Also a very nice guy. Lou had a tremendous discovery about 20 years ago. He discovered that nitric oxide relaxed vascular tissue. It means it allows your arteries to expand and contract more easily. What that told Lou was that this would improve blood flow, okay? And it could help prevent heart attacks and save millions and millions of lives. And he was right. What he did was he invented a way to elevate your body's natural nitric oxide levels so that your arteries were kind of softer and they would expand and it allowed your heart to pump and your blood to flow much easier. Tremendous, tremendous discovery. One of the biggest discoveries of the 20th century. Lou says, hey, I published this and I won the Nobel Prize. And he did. Absolutely brilliant. And he won the Nobel Prize. That is the highest prize a scientist can ever get, right? Fantastic stuff. But he made a mistake. Does anybody know what the mistake was? Does anybody care? Anybody still awake? Yeah. You got it. He didn't patent it. He published it before he patented it. That's a great answer. Thank you. That is a very, very big mistake, especially in today's world. If you publish something, the information is out in the public domain and you cannot patent it. Okay? You need to patent something and then publish it. He got a little excited. Guess what happened? Poor old Lou got sort of pushed to the side because he didn't have a patent on this. And what pushed him to the side was the world's largest pharmaceutical company, Pfizer. Poor Lou didn't have a chance at this point. Pfizer had thousands of brilliant business people. They had thousands of brilliant scientists. And you know what they thought of immediately? They said, hey, wait a minute. If this stuff improves blood flow, maybe it has other uses too. Anybody know this one? This is the other use that Pfizer came up with. This is the little blue pill, the magic blue pill. This is Viagra. It's all about improving blood flow, okay? Now listen. Viagra didn't save any lives, but it sure made a lot of people happy, right? To the tune of somewhere between $15 and $20 billion worth of sales, okay? So it made a lot of people happy, both the users and the bean counters back at Pfizer. The only one it didn't make happy was poor old Lou, because he didn't get a penny for his invention because he hadn't patented it. So this is the lesson to scientists. Always work with smart business people. You two together are such a powerful combination. Lou could have been sitting on his yacht taking me to dinner every night when I visit him in LA, and instead he still lives in the same little house right outside of UCLA that he always lived in. Great guy, brilliant man, Nobel laureate, didn't get a penny for the biggest invention of the 20th century. Okay, let me give you a few more examples. These are examples from my company. At Young Living, we have what we call the D. Gary Young Research Institute. That's a fancy name for R&D, research and development. We renamed R&D, the D. Gary Young Research Institute, last year after the passing of our founder, Gary Young. So we did it in his memory. And it was sort of to carry on his traditions of scientific excellence and curiosity. Now, the reason I show you this is because I'm so proud of the people that work for me in this institute. I've got about, don't quote me on this, probably about 60 scientists working at Young Living in this institute. And they are a powerhouse of development, an absolute powerhouse. but we do product development just a little differently at Young Living. So let me just show you, I forgot to show you this too. This is our new building. You may have seen this up north on I-15 in Lehigh. We will be moving into this building in April. And this will house the D. Gary Young Research Institute. The reason I wanted to show you this is because this will be open to the public, and our laboratories will be behind glass. So you can actually come in and see scientists working at Young Living, which I think can be really a lot of fun for people. The only thing I ask if you come visit, it's kind of like an aquarium, so don't tap on the glass because you can disturb the scientists. And it's, you know, they're like goldfish, kind of. I don't want any of them going belly up during the day job. But anyway, come visit us. Now, as I was saying, we do research just a little bit differently. We only research natural products. And I'm so proud of this team because that's kind of like trying to do research with one hand tied behind your back. Right? You're very limited in the ingredients you can use. I'm showing you just a few of the products that we launched last year. We actually launched, I believe, 58 new products just last year. So this is a real R&D powerhouse. This just kind of shows the power of science, okay? Now, I would say about maybe 60% of these products or product ideas were given to the scientists from the business people. They said, hey, people need this. We've done surveys, we've talked to people, we've done focus groups, whatever it is. People need this. The other 40% of those products came directly from the scientists, and they were products that people really didn't know they needed. These products are selling very well, and you can see we have a vast sort of variety of types of products here. We do everything from cosmetics to essential oils in a bottle, to household cleaners, to over-the-counter medicines. We do it all. I'm really, really proud. But this is just an example of the power of product development. Okay? Now let's move on to the next subject, testing. This is another thing that scientists can do that can be very helpful for a company. I'll use testing at Young Living as an example. I'm showing our farm down in Mona, Utah in this photo. This is where we grow lavender. And if you've never seen 1,100 acres of lavender bloom, you really should. You should come visit us in July. It's phenomenal down there. This farm's always open to the public, too. You can go down there and take a tour. We have, pardon me, a number of exotic animals that we keep there. We have the world champion horse team down there that you can see perform. It's a great place to visit. Anyway, let's talk about testing. The reason I'm showing you a field and saying testing at the same time is because, as I said before, every one of our products comes from the fields. Now again, this picture is from the farm in Mona, our lavender farm, but we have farms all over the world with very similar facilities. What you see on the right side here is a distillation system, distillation facility. There are 11 very large stills at this farm. Each one has an 18,000 liter capacity. And what we do is we put the plant material in there and then we turn on steam. The steam carries the oils out of the plant, and then we use the oils for various products. When we collect the oils, we collect them in these big stainless steel containers. And then they're shipped to our state-of-the-art facility down in Spanish Fork. And this is our distribution and blending and bottling center for our essential oils that come out of all of these exotic plants. And as I said, when they come into Spanish Fork, there we go, it looks like this. These are the big stainless steel containers, and they get put on a shelf, and they're all labeled and logged in and so on and so forth. And then you know what happens to those oils? Nothing. Absolutely nothing is allowed to happen to those oils until they've been tested by our quality control laboratory. Okay? So testing is of vital importance for us, not only to ensure that the products contain what they say they contain, but also don't contain anything that we don't want in there. Right? It's a quality issue. We don't want nasty things in there. So we test for things like pesticide residue and lead and chromium, nasty things. We make sure that there's absolutely none of it in there. The testing process is very complex, and I'm not going to go into tremendous detail on that today. If any of you have trouble sleeping, call me and I'll go through it with you. But what I do want to show you I really do want to show you this. There we go. Is just the array of tests that we use. Okay? No good scientist would ever rely on one single test to determine an answer. A good scientist will throw a battery of different tests at something and make sure that all of the answers line up before they draw a conclusion. And that's how we do quality testing. So in general, any one of our particular products, and again, I'm generalizing here, there's exceptions to every rule, but any one of our products usually gets tested anywhere from on about 15 different tests, and it's repeated twice, usually 3 times. So now do the math, right? 15 tests repeated 3 times, that's 45 measurements before those raw materials are released into our facility to be blended into something or to be bottled and sold as a single oil, okay? We're not done at that point, though. After the finished product is all bottled and sealed and ready to ship out the door, it goes back to our quality control labs and it's tested again through all of these tests. So that's 45 and 45. That means every product that we sell, in general, has seen about 90 different tests before it leaves our facility. That is critical, especially when you're selling healthcare products. We must make sure that we've got the proper purity, the proper potency, and that everything on the label is actually in there. Okay? This is critical. This is where science can make or break a company. In fact, I don't know if you saw this morning, there was a recall on ibuprofen. The Equate brand at Walmart and the CVS brand are both made in the same factory. It's a generic drug company. And they had to recall their product because they have 10% too much ibuprofen in their baby ibuprofen. And 10% too much drug to a baby can be devastating. So they recalled the product. This is where science and the expense placed on science becomes justified because it prevents things like recalls, and worse yet, it can prevent a product from really hurting someone. Okay, so quality and testing is incredibly important to business. Okay? One mistake on a product like this can put a company out of business. Okay? Let's move on. As I said, we're a little different. I mentioned our seed to seal program where we start with the seeds and we test the whole way through. This is actually a photo of the head of my analytical department, Dr. Carlson. And he's actually at our farm in South Africa in this photo. I used to joke, I always said Rich was outstanding in his field, and here he is outstanding in his, anyway. What you see behind him are young lemon trees, and this is where we actually get our lemon oil from. And the farm wanted to expand its area of lemon plants, and so Dr. Carlson actually went out and tested the soil, tested the water, tested the air to make sure it was absolutely pure before these lemons started to actually grow. We, of course, test the lemons and everything else as well, but we start at the very beginning. That's an investment that Young Living makes because of our claims. And claims and the science that supports those claims is critical to any business, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. I just wanted to show you one other picture. This is another one of our scientists. He's at our farm in Bulgaria, where we grow a plant called Roman chamomile. You probably had chamomile tea and things like that. This is the plant that it comes from. We extract the essential oil from Roman chamomile and use it in a number of different products. But the reason I wanted to show you this is Tyler, one of our ace scientists. He flew to Bulgaria to test the soil to make sure that it had the right levels of nitrogen and also to make sure that there were no pollutants, no synthetic contaminants in that soil. And I just wanted to run this video really quickly. I don't know if you can see this well, but if you look closely, you can see his shirt's starting to get wet. This just shows the dedication of this scientist. He's out in the pouring rain doing this testing. And this is because, testing is just so important to us and basically to most industry. I like to think that most companies are honest companies and that they do test their products and that they drive their quality. There are some that aren't, but I'd like to think most are, and this is the kind of investment those companies need. Now, let's talk about what I think is the most fun part of being a scientist working in a company with business experts like you. It's claims. Okay? Product claims. There are all sorts of product claims, and product claims need to be backed up by science. Sometimes the product claims come from business people. Sometimes they come from marketing focus groups. A lot of times they come from scientists. But they've got to be truthful. And in this country, we have this little organization called the Federal Trade Commission that makes sure that there's truth in advertising. That means they make sure that you can back up your claims. Okay? And they impose some very strict penalties if you cannot. Let me show you an example. Here's a company that didn't do the science, that made some crazy claims. And I'm not busting on Nivea. It's a great product. It's made by a company called Beiersdorf. Normally, they do their science well. They rushed to get something to the market, and this was called Nivea My Silhouette. What a concept, man. You rub a little bit of this on your body, and it reduces your body size. I can just see my stomach going down like this. It's great stuff, right? Sounds a little outlandish, though, doesn't it? So, of course, they got challenged, and they were hauled before the FTC. And the company had to pay a substantial sum of money. Worse yet, that product is no longer allowed on the market. Okay? This is where the claims support is so important. Okay? They had no scientific data to make this claim. When they were hauled in front of the FTC, they couldn't say anything about it. They said, oh, how do you support this? I don't know. And they ended up with a huge fine. Okay? This is another one. This is one of my favorite. Anybody ever hear of Q-ray bracelets? Yeah? Did anybody ever buy a Q-ray bracelet? No one? Oh, thank goodness. You're smarter than I thought. That's really good. Their claim is that it provides immediate and significant pain relief from arthritis and other chronic conditions. As soon as you say pain, there's another little organization that comes into play, and that's the FDA, because pain is a drug claim, and FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, regulate drug claims. So now these poor folks had the FTC and the FDA all over them. And in fact, this claim was really, really kind of silly. They had this thing where they said it focuses magnetic rays, and they were showing pictures of spaceships. It was just bizarre stuff. Didn't end up too well for them. They ended up with an $87 million ruling against them. Okay. So again, I hope I'm making the point. When you folks are out in the real world and you're working for companies and it comes time to make claims on your products, for crying out loud, make sure that the scientists can back up the claims. That was the end of that company. One more. This one's a little closer to home. This is probably a product many of you have used, right? Airborne, have you heard of it? Yeah? Yeah. Now, Airborne's a fine product, but when they first started, they made a mistake. They advertised it as saying that it was a miracle cold buster. Okay? Again, once you say colds, our friends the FDA get involved, and the FTC and everybody else. Notice, this is a photo of the newer package, right? Notice that nowhere, does this have a, yeah, there we go. Notice nowhere on this package does it mention colds anymore. They took it off. The reason they took it off is because they had to pay customers $23 million in a class action lawsuit over that claim. I'll tell you right now, if any product says it, have to be careful in the verbiage here. If any product says that it will treat a cold, that's an illegal claim. There is nothing in existence that we know of now that can actually fight or eradicate the virus involved with the common cold. What you can say is that products relieve the symptoms of colds. So runny nose, itchy eyes, that kind of, you can say that, but you can't say it fights a cold. So the verbiage here is very precise, and companies need to be very careful, not only what they say, but how they say it, to avoid these strict regulatory rulings against them. Okay? This is kind of cool. You know this symbol? Better Business Bureau, right? The Better Business Bureau has a really interesting group with a very unfortunate abbreviation, But anyway, it's called the National Advertising Division. The National Advertising Division is a forum where any consumer, and more importantly, any company, can bring another company in front of a board of arbitrators to discuss their claims. So this is actually a really powerful tool that allows companies to kind of self-regulate their industry. Okay? I used to appear before this board quite a bit when I was working on a product called Aquafresh toothpaste. We invented the first whitening toothpaste. And we had a competitive company, which I won't name, but they make toothpaste, and it's in a red box. And they also, about 2 months after we did, launched a whitening toothpaste. And they were claiming that theirs was superior to ours. We went into NAD, and we sat in front of their arbitrators, and we presented our data. We had clinical testing where dentists actually measured the whitening, and Colgate didn't have it. And we won. And Colgate actually had to remove not only that claim, but that product from the market. It came back later. They actually went ahead and did clinical testing, but it cost them quite a few $1 million, and it kept them off the market for about 2 years while we sold a ton of toothpaste. So that's how this works. It's an arbitration group. You go in, you present your data, and they will give you their ruling. Usually, and I don't know the real number here, I'm going to guess probably 85% of the time, companies will abide by that ruling. So usually it's like about an advertisement or something, and the company will just say, okay, I'll take that ad off of TV. Sometimes the companies don't abide by the decision, and then this gets escalated right up to the Federal Trade Commission, and then you can be in some serious trouble, as you saw before with Q-Ray and some of those other products. But this is one of the great things in the United States that allows companies to sort of patrol other companies. And I think that's a great thing for consumers in general, because it prevents a lot of silliness and lies. Have any of you ever heard of this before? No? When you get out and start working in business, you will, because it's a really valuable tool, as long as you have the data from the science. Okay? As I said, this is just sort of a mediation group. Oh, one thing I should tell you, this is very inexpensive too. These mediation services, I'm sure they change from year to year. Right now, if it's a company with sales less than $1 billion and they want to, or an individual, and they want to bring it to the NAD, it costs $20,000. That's really not much when you're talking about products that could be selling hundreds of millions of dollars. Right? If you're over $1 billion in sales a year, then it costs you $25,000. It's still really trivial, and it's a great way to get results very quickly. So it's something that the Better Business Bureau can be very proud of. It's something our country can be very proud of, because we have probably the most honest marketing in the world in the US. Oh, too fast. Way too fast. Don't look, don't look. Wait, I got to go back. Okay. Whoop. Try again. One more time. I have all these degrees. I can't work the flicker. It's ridiculous. One more time. Come on, go back. There we go. I want to talk about one of our products from Young Living and talk about how we tested it to support claims. This is a sunscreen. Because it's Young Living, it's all natural. It's based on minerals. It doesn't have any of the nasty synthetic chemicals that absorb ultraviolet radiation. Instead, this uses minerals to literally block the light on your skin. But you can see the claims here. It says SPF 50. It says broad spectrum. It says water resistant for 80 minutes. Can't say any of those things without testing them thoroughly and have the data in-house to prove it. So I just wanted to show you, this is kind of a two-part thing. I wanted to show you the testing that's involved in supporting these claims. It's also my plea to you to stay in school, because when you see how this stuff is tested, these are jobs no one wants, okay? This is how you test for SPF factors, sun protection factors for sunscreens. You actually get volunteers. Well, I guess they're volunteers. These are people who line up to get $30 to get sunburn. okay? And this is the instrument that they use. So this is a close-up of the instrument on someone's back. And it's shining different wavelengths of ultraviolet light on their back to induce sunburn. And what happens is that you shine this on a person without any sunscreen, and then you shine it on a spot on their back that has sunscreen, and you look at the difference. So this is what it looks like. I don't know if you can see that well, but on the left is someone without the sunscreen, and you can see the sunburn spots. And on the right, very, very little sunburn. And what they do is they measure the time it takes until this side looks like this side. And basically, if you see a sunscreen and it says SPF 50, that means that you can be in the sun 50 times longer and get the same amount of burn as you could without it. Does that make sense? SPF 30 is 30 times longer, 10 is 10 times longer. That's how it works. But I wanted to show you this because, you know, when you go to work and you think your job sucks, remember you could be getting sunburned for a living, okay? Here's another product. This is an all-natural insect repellent that we launched 2 years ago. I'm really proud of this one. This one works tremendously well. We do a lot of volunteer work in Africa and South America, and all of our people use this, and it's a phenomenal product. But look at all those benefits and features that we list. There's a lot there. We had to do a lot of testing to prove all of this, to support it. Otherwise, we end up at our friends at NAD or maybe FTC. I'm not going to focus on all of these, but I do want to point out this part up here. Clinically tested to repel mosquitoes, ticks, and other nasty things. Do you know how we do that? Do you know what clinical testing actually means? Does everybody understand the difference between clinical testing and lab testing? Clinical testing is on human beings, right? Laboratory testing could be in a beaker or on a rat or some other nasty creature like a politician or something. But clinical testing is actually done on humans, okay? Here's why you should stay in school, folks. Here's how you clinically test an insect repellent. You stick your arm in a box filled with hungry mosquitoes and you see how many of them bite you. This is what the inside of that box looks like. Yeah. The only thing happy in that box are the mosquitoes, right? So obviously this was one arm that that didn't have any mosquito repellent applied to it. It wasn't treated. And then you stick it in the box for 2 minutes, and when you pull it out, you count how many bites you had. Then you take your other arm that is treated with the mosquito repellent, and you put it in the box, and hopefully it's a lot less bites. That's clinical testing for you. That's human testing. But that's the kind of stuff you need to support powerful claims, okay? So as you go out and you invent products and you go to sell products, think of the kind of testing you can do to really support strong claims. This makes our product. To be able to say that it repels, and this poor, I don't know if it was the same person, but these poor people had to do the same thing with ticks and fleas, right? Yeah. But think about the work that goes behind these claims to support them. It's an incredible amount of work, and it's a lot of sacrifice, quite frankly. Interestingly, we tested this particular product with the leading natural repellent, and we beat it. And you can make those kind of claims as well if you test the leading natural repellent the same way, okay? Fun stuff. Here's another product. This is a maximum strength acne treatment. This is actually registered with FDA as an OTC, an over-the-counter medicine, because acne is a disease that you treat, and when you treat a disease, it automatically makes it a drug or a medicine, okay? So this isn't any little foo-foo product. This is a real product that required a lot of testing. But again, I want to just show you the sacrifices that are made for clinical testing. The other thing I should tell you about clinical testing is it's expensive because you've got people involved, and you've also not only got people, but you've usually got doctors to examine those people. And sometimes these tests can be upwards of 700 people or more, so it's expensive and it's time consuming. It's a big investment. It's one of those things that companies need to decide whether the return on investment is worth it or not. Is the claim actually worth the work? But let me show you what we did for an acne treatment. We actually went to a facility in Pennsylvania. It's outside of Philadelphia, and it's the world's leading dermatological research facility. And I apologize, this is going to be a little difficult to see on the screen. But what they did was they recruited people. Yeah, it's better over there. They recruited people who had acne, right? And they had them come into the office, and they applied our acne treatment. Now, this woman, very brave woman to come in and allow us to use her photographs, actually had acne all over her face, but I want you to focus on the 3 areas there that are circled, okay? Those are very, very severe acne lesions. Okay, they were down so deep that if she rubbed them a little bit, they would bleed. I mean, they were nasty. What we did was we had her use the product for 1 week and then come back and position her in the same way. And there's actually special little devices that hold your head exactly at the right angle, and the lighting's the same. And we take specialized photographs. And what we saw was this. And again, I apologize, it's a little difficult to see here. But if you look at those areas that were circled, and then look at the photo on the right, those areas are gone. Those lesions cleared in 1 week. And that's how we are able to make maximum strength acne claims. Now, I got to tell you, I told you before that the people that we sell to, we call members. And because they're members, a lot of them share their experiences of their products with us, which I find really intriguing. It's a lot more fun than when I was at GSK, where everything was advertising. Here's a woman who used it for a month, and look at that. Okay? Now, I think I'm going to stop with the slides. I want to show you just one quick demonstration that kind of summarizes what I'm trying to say. Let's pretend you're a company, and you have lots of wonderful business people and scientists working for you. And let's pretend that this rope is a new product that you want to work on, okay? And someone brought an idea to you and they said, gee, let's invent a way to find the exact center of a rope without any measuring devices. And you took it to the engineers and they said, oh, that's easy. Any engineer knows this. You put the 2 ends together, and if you draw it out, that should be the center of the rope, right? Fair enough? Anybody still awake? Huh? So you bring the center of the rope up through your hand like this, and maybe the marketing team said, oh, let's make a better story. Let's do something more with this particular product. Let's cut it in that middle, and if we cut it, then we should have 2 nice pieces of rope that are about the same length. Oh, well, this rope stretches a little. Let me just, whatever. Pretend they're even. Okay. Okay. Take it one step further, right? What can we do with this? Maybe the scientists could put the rope back together after it's been cut in 2 even pieces. And the scientists would tell you, oh, well, we'll stretch the rope, and that expands the coefficient of drag, and that allows the rope not to slip, and we can pull it like this, and nothing slips apart, and there we have it. Okay? So the marketing people say, yeah, cool. We can't talk about expanding the coefficient of drag on a piece of rope after you stretch it and pull. That's stupid. No consumer would like that. So now the marketing team and the business people get involved, and they start talking about, how can we really say this? What can we say that would play well with consumers? Well, instead of coefficient of drag, why don't we say we tied a knot? It's okay. Next group of marketing people says, why don't we say we put it together? Final group of marketing people comes in and says, let's say we restored it back to 1 piece. Restored. That's a cool word. It's also supported by the science. And that is where the power of business and science come together to make magic. Okay? Thanks, everybody.